Blog Talk Radio.
Dedicate our life to this sport. We do thousands of sit-ups in camp. We run hundreds of miles, for the ones that take it serious. And we just dedicate ourselves fully to our craft, man. We watch tape. We have attitude. We're rooting, and we go into that fight is to land on the line.
Boxing fans, this is the Rope and Dope Radio Podcast. I am your host, Chris Carlson. We are live on a Wednesday, late afternoon. Okay, I meant it to be late afternoon, but it's early evening. Anyway, hope everybody's doing all right. I know, I had done the show on Tuesdays and Mondays for a long time, so I'm sorry I'm messing you guys up. But as the old saying goes, life gets in the way, and life's about to get in the way a little later tonight. So I kind of am doing a show randomly. Didn't tell anybody, just going to do it and get her done. You know what I'm saying? We will start in the ring, which is always the favorite place, and the place you should start almost every boxing podcast, right? In the ring. We will talk a little bit about the ShoBox fights. Previewing the schedule with an in-depth segment coming up this weekend. Not really necessary if we're honest, right? So it will be news heavy. Obviously, Terence Crawford has filed a lawsuit with a variety of claims against Top Rank and Company, Bob Arum, Todd DeBuff. I think they're listed in the lawsuit, but I don't think it's a personal lawsuit against them. I think it's Top Rank. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is. But either way, we'll talk a little bit about that. Go into some of the details. BoxingScene.com has some pretty good details, go figure. They always, So there's a variety of stuff to talk about when it comes to that. I did get plenty of messages saying, hey, what happened to the boxing Twitter segment? I thought you were going to light some media members cheerleading and fanboying up. That you're going to light them up, but I spaced that part. I kind of got late in the show, and I totally forgot about that. That is my fault. Just didn't have time to fit it in, but I got time now. Chris Mannix and Dan Raphael, some of the things that were going back and forth on that podcast, really a head scratcher, man. But not really, But yeah, so I've added them to the list. But we will roast who I was talking about, and I'm pretty sure you guys know who I'm talking about. But we're going to get to him. But that'll be how we close the show per usual. Tim Smith, of the PBC. What is he, the head PR guy over there? He was on the PBC podcast, which even though it's called the PBC podcast and all that, they do a pretty good job, especially Kenneth over there. I want to say that on some in-depth questions. A lot of questions are going to be run-of-the-mill, but like I said, it says PBC on it. However, go listen to that Steven Espinoza interview. Kenneth did a great job on that. But we will address some of the stuff Tim Smith said about a possible Errol Spence and Terence Crawford and some of the difficulties there to make that fight. A lot of people were not happy with what he said. I'm going to break it down to you realistically like I do. There was a variety of rumors about Canelo and Charlo in talks. Now, Eddie Reynoso shut that down, saying, hold on, dude, we're not specifically in talks with just Charlo right now. We're actually about to, talk to a variety of stuff and see what we got. So I'll update that scenario. There's also a little rumor going around. I haven't heard it being confirmed just yet that Jermell Charlo is maybe on the move trainer-wise. totally, saw it in a couple different places. Don't know if that's right. I will have an update. Speaking of Terence Crawford, I will have an update from Bernie the Boxer in his plans. You guys know that YouTube channel? I mean, dude's obviously biased, but of course he's going to be biased. He's in the camp with Terence Crawford. But what he had to say was mighty interesting. Mighty interesting. And so, yeah, there's a couple other items. We will get to the DAZN schedule for the first quarter and break that down. There's only really one just can't-miss fight, and that's, of course, Estrada and Gonzalez, Chocolatito, the trilogy. But there are, just like any schedule, there's going to be some stay-busy whatever fights, maybe a mismatch here and there, possibly, maybe a fight that you're not intrigued. But I think the crossroads fights or real step-up fights fit the bill on this one. I really do. I like the schedule. I'm not going to go and call it brilliant like a lot of Matchroom fanboys are saying. It's not brilliant, but it does have multiple crossroads fights. And sure, you can make the argument crossroads fights. Sometimes one of the fighters has already been at the crossroads and, he made his turn and, there's nothing there left, right? But a lot of times they can also produce some damn good matchup because of that inspiration of, hey, I need to get this done. I need to be tuned in, and that'll lead me to a bigger fight. So we're going to break it all down in a wide variety of ways. We do have some other current fight news. February 5th, as of like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, was just jam-packed with fights. Well, it's thinned out a little here in the States. 2 cards now have been postponed. Lucky the keyword is postponed. We already knew one last week. We have a new one now. So we'll definitely get into some of that. And, like I said, fight news and whatnot. The first quarter, it's interesting. We haven't seen, we know what ESPN's doing a little early right now. We definitely have the Matchroom schedule, which is always nice that it's just there. You know what to expect. Showtime in the coming weeks looks like they're going to announce. Maybe Fox will announce. I don't know if they're going to wait till February 5th to announce. I have no clue with Fox right now. You assume that Spence and Ugas will be on Fox pay-per-view, but I guess we can't assume everything. Maybe it'll be Showtime. I don't know. But I'm assuming Fox. Anyway, like I said, we will start in the ring, but if this is your first time listening to the Rope-A-Dope Radio Podcast, welcome. It streams live right here on blogtalkradio.com/Rope-A-Dope Radio. Man, I got some issues, I guess. But you don't have to go to Blog Talk and Rope-A-Dope and download the show directly there and listen to the browser if you don't want to. You can find the platform on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Player FM, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spreaker, Amazon Music, a variety of other places. Well, just Google it. We're also part of the Grueling True Sports Podcast Network. While you're at it, why don't you head on over to thegruelingtruth.com. And one more thing, if I can talk, that is, if you're thinking about cutting the cord or you're not quite happy, I got something for you. It's called DirecTV Stream. The prices start as low as $69.99 a month. It's the best of live TV and on demand. No annual contracts, no hidden fees. If you upgrade to the Choice or Ultimate Package, that'll give you 3 free months of HBO Max. Plus, you get to enjoy regional sports networks with no additional fees, which, as you see, that's becoming harder and harder. And in boxing fans, this is a little note for you. You go all the way to the Premier Package, that'll give you HBO Max and Showtime. I think it's $11 on this platform anyway, regardless, Showtime, just so you know. That is DirecTV Stream. Okay. That intro was a little rough when I started, reading out all that stuff. I apologize. But anyway, we did have, before we get into this news-heavy thing, and I'm kind of going to try to brief upon a couple of things, but keep it moving. I don't want to get tied down in some kind of half-hour rant or something like that, I'm going to keep it moving. Some of it will be a little bit more in-depth, but like I said, I don't want to go too long on each topic, you know what I mean? I don't want to drag this thing out too far by any stretch. But yeah, when we're talking about, the Showbox card, the main event was kind of what I thought it would be. Arrieta is a okay fighter. He was undefeated. Hadn't, beaten anyone of note, but Luis Nunez, who it's not like he's beaten a lot of, fighters of note either. But this is the prospect level, right? So it was undefeated against undefeated, but you did see that Nunez had a clear advantage in this fight in a variety of ways. And he took it to him. It was pretty basic. He definitely brought that pressure along with the jab, definitely landing some nice right hooks and right crosses. You'd have like Arrieta, landing in spots. I guess you could kind of say throughout the fight, but not really. You know what I mean? In the third round, flush left hand. I think it was a left hook midway. Looked like Nunez was going to really start to pour it on there. But overall, he landed the cleaner shots, better shots. Like I said, he had moments, Arrieta, but just not enough. And even when he was landing, it wasn't like he was really putting in some, major power shots or anything like that. Kind of some fun stuff down the stretch from maybe the 7th to the 9th round. But a big right hand definitely hurt Arrieta. It was a body shot, and a few more of those shots. And before you know it, he had a couple flurries, and it was a TKO. He hurt him pretty bad, and that's what I was kind of looking for Luis Nunez to do. It was kind of like, all right, dude, you set it all up. You're outlanding him through 9+ rounds, because it did end in the 10th round, 142 to I can't remember, I think it was 130. So like I said, it's not that Arrieta didn't put up some sort of fight, because he did, but, it wasn't much. I did like how Nunez closed the show, though. It seemed like he may have been able to step on the gas a little bit more, maybe with some big shots, but he did ultimately get the job done. And so he moves on. We'll see, I'm assuming he'll be on Showbox again. Maybe an FS1 card. I think it was Showbox, because he's not with, I don't think he's with Al Heyman. So, yeah. So, in the FS1 cards, are really hit or miss anyway as far as beyond prelim, you know what I mean? So we'll see if what they do with those FS1 cards this year. And when I mean hit or miss, it's not necessarily the content on it, the fights, right? But it's just, the original deal had 12 before COVID, had 12 a year, and they only did a handful last year on FS1 beyond the prelim. The opener, Edwin De Los Santos and William Foster. I thought it was a very competitive fight. I thought De Los Santos won the first 2 rounds. Counter left hands were a big thing from him, same with right hooks. It started to get a little bit more competitive in the 3rd and 4th. That was a close round, the 3rd round. Foster definitely had success. Santos, though, to me, the flush uppercut and more right hooks behind the jab. I thought you could have maybe gave him the 3rd, but then Foster went on a nice run. And it was kind of weird. That 4th round, I got a little confused, I got to admit. It was like there was a cut, and it looked like it was a headbutt, but then the ref kind of made it sound like there was an elbow involved, but then he took a point away from the opposite guy who had the cut. So I was a little confused there for a second. I was like, wait a second. And they never really talked a whole lot about it after that while the fight was going on. So that was confusing. It was kind of like, well, that would be a 10-8 round then, which it could have been a 10-9, could have been, a little bit different, but obviously that gave him the advantage. But he was also winning rounds. You know, the fifth, sixth, and seventh. Foster definitely won those. It seemed like De Los Santos was starting to fade a little bit, getting tired by the fifth and sixth round, whereas Foster definitely upped his rate. I think it's William Foster the third, to be exact. But yeah, the hooks on the inside, those short little uppercuts, I thought did the job. Foster started digging to the body as well, always behind the jab, though it seemed. And it was just kind of more of the same down the stretch. In the eighth round, though, you could make an argument that De Los Santos kind of outworked him and maybe won that last round. So it was a competitive fight. De Los Santos landed actually a little bit more, 125 to 117. Both of them were somewhat active through 8 rounds anyway, 421 for Santos and 408. Santos worked the body a little bit more as well, landed at a higher percentage, but it was one of those fights where you can kind of throw out the CompuBox numbers and just see, you know, what did you see? Who landed the bigger punches? And I did think Foster did. For 8 rounds, I had him 5-3. You could make an argument with the 4-4 draw as far as rounds, but Foster would still have the 1-point advantage because of the deduction. But I was good with 5-3 or 4-3-1, somewhere in that range. De Los Santos did get one of the judges' scorecards 77-74. The other were 77-74 in favor of Foster. And I thought he looked pretty good. I definitely want to see more of him, Foster, but it's kind of a wait-and-see thing. Starling Castillo and Arianoson, I think it's Arianoson. This, to me, was – I mean, I was looking forward to that first fight, and it lived up to it because it was competitive. But I did want to see how this one would play out. I thought Arianoson got off to – you know, he's landed the better shots early. He scored – I mean, the first round, it was tough to beat him. I mean, he landed with that left hand, knocked him down. It was like a looping left hand. And then late in that round, the second knockdown was another left hand, so he was up 10-7 in that first round, and I thought he did enough in the second and third. So right then and there, in an 8-round fight, that's going to be tough to overcome. Now Castillo, I thought, won a round or two somewhere in there. The 6th round was close. Maybe you can give that to him. I definitely gave him the fourth, the jabs in this little late flurry, and in that flurry by Castillo, it was the best shot probably of the fight for him, but definitely in that round. Other than that, I couldn't really give many more to Castillo. I thought he fought hard, but Arianoson just kept bringing that pressure, and he outlanded him 153 to 102. And he threw 605 to 430, and the body shots the power shots 150 to 95. So he pretty much handled them. The scorecards read 79-71, and 2 had it 80 to 70. Like I said, 2 rounds for sure. I thought the fourth round for Castillo, but Arianoson really, you know, brought the heat the whole fight. Just kept coming and coming, and he was a funny dude after too. He was really excited when they're taking the pictures and before, you know, they announced the winner and stuff. And even after they announced the winner, he was taking pictures with his team, and the ref was there. You know how the ref always takes a picture. And it was pretty funny how just excited he was, you know. Not funny in like I'm making fun of him way, but just the energy that guy had. It's always refreshing to see that out of a fighter. So I definitely want to see more of him. He definitely passed his test. Both of them did, Foster and him. So all in all, I had interest, like intrigue in 2 out of 3 fights on paper. Nunez started out really well, kind of didn't deliver in the middle rounds. I saw a lot of folks be like, hey, dude, were you going to turn it up here? I mean, you're dominating the fight. Take him out, or at least try to take him out. And to his credit, he did. He definitely did. So, yeah, it'll be fun to see. You assume these guys, you know, will remain on Showbox for a little bit. So hopefully we see them, you know, in a handful of months and get them back on there because they're good fighters. It was an interesting card. So, yeah, overall I thought it was a good Showbox on Showtime. That's another, a lot of people, it's kind of funky because a year ago, 2 years ago, because Eddie Hearn and Bob Arum told you guys, and the media told you guys that Showtime was going to go out of business like HBO did, a lot of people just listened to it. Just like, yeah, it's going to happen, And I noticed this year they were mad that Showtime was putting on pay-per-views a little bit, right? The Gervonta Davises and those exhibition fights or whatever, and that's fine. It is what it is. I'm not going to get into a big pay-per-view discussion about this, but they also give a show box about 6 times a year, it seems. I think that was what it was last year, and they're up and down. They're not. It's consistently pretty good, and it's the longest series running that has been really solid. I mean, over 50 champions have been developed. It's just a quality show, but they bring that. Yes, they do have the pay-per-views, but they also have the championship boxing. So you can say whatever you want about Showtime. We'll see what their schedule looks like here in the coming weeks. It should be announced here soon. So you can only judge what is on paper, and we'll see. We'll see. But, yeah, Showtime had for those who don't know, I'll repeat it. Showtime had the best year in boxing last year, period. Point blank. That's just not up for debate. So as of right now, they're not going anywhere, okay? As much as some folks want it to be. So basically that sums up the weekend. Like I said, a light weekend, no doubt about it. We have another light weekend coming up. It was kind of going to be light anyway. A lot of times in January, you don't have a lot of great fights because it's the NFL playoffs that kind of take over. Not just, they play Saturday, Sunday, and now they play on Monday. I think they're going to play not this week, but next week on a Friday too. And that's a whole different discussion, but it just takes up a lot of attention in general. So once in a while, we'll get big fights in January. As I've spoken many a times, that last Saturday usually is the case that we'll get a big fight. Not to say we haven't gotten. I mean, last year we got Ryan Garcia and Luke Campbell. Pacquiao fought in January 2019 against Broner. So we'll get big fights in that fight date, but it's pushed back to February now, the first Saturday in February, because the NFL is 17 games, not 16 games, so that gives them 18 weeks instead of 17. Anyway, my point is, it usually starts out a tad bit light, picks up, and then hits the ground running come April, May, and June and whatnot. And the rumors about what is going to be on the schedule, let's say from here to May even, there's some interesting stuff, no doubt about it. But on paper, what we know is about to get announced, like on Showtime, like the Charlo Castano feuded at 154, the rematch, that's going to be pushed to, what they say, March. So the one thing I'll say, so I think it's just to complete this sentence, I think it's going to be a pretty good first quarter. But we're already starting to see the COVID bug pop up. So don't forget about that stuff. Don't get your hopes up too much, especially with this new variant that, it's mutated. They say, the good thing is it's less, it affects you less on average anyway, relatively speaking, of course. And, vaccinated, not vaccinated, that's a whole, other layer to it. But it spreads like wildfire. And all you need to do is have it, and you're going to be out for at least 5 days. And, more and more cities are going to go to, well, I shouldn't say for sure go to it because it's happening here and it hadn't happened before. But if you want to go to a game, like a Timberwolves game or a hockey game like the Wild game or a fight at the Armory, if you want to go out to eat, it just kicked in. Well, actually, it hasn't kicked in. It kicks in next Friday, I believe. I can't remember the exact date. I want to say the 19th. I don't know. But anyway, you need to be vaccinated. You got to show them the vaccinated card to get in, or it's kind of like overseas flights now, international. You know how like within 72 hours you have to have a negative test? Well, you could show them, that you have the vaccine, that you got it, and you show them your card. That'll get you in. Otherwise, you have to have I think it's 72 hours. You have to have a negative test done by then. Then you can be allowed in to the restaurant or the bar or whatever. It just got announced today. My point is, the shit ain't going anywhere right now. Now, you can make an argument, in the coming months it'll drop again for sure. Like the mask mandates, that just kicked back in here in Minneapolis and St. Paul as well. So that stuff will help it, and it's bound to take it's taken this giant leap and then going down again. And once we get outside again, it'll help, right? It always has. So my point is, nothing is set in concrete when it comes to these fights. And literally in the last 7 days since I talked to you guys last, we've already had 2 fights get pushed back from that. So, it is what it is. So try not to get too, pissed off when it happens. But that's why I'm telling you right now, don't get too hyped about stuff. Let's just hope they're postponements and not major injuries. I mean, boxing has this injury thing anyway. In other sports, especially team sports, and really individual sports, in a tennis tournament, if someone gets hurt, then you just get hurt and you're done. And the next guy and the next woman moves on, And in boxing, if it's a big enough event, a lot of times it'll get postponed or sometimes canceled in general. Anyway, just kind of putting that out there. We will go over the DAZN schedule a little later in the show. We will talk about Tim Smith, the head PR guy over at Premier Boxing Champions. We'll talk about his interview and some of the comments he talked about on that PBC podcast about the Spence and Crawford fight and a variety of other stuff. Like I said, breaking down that DAZN schedule, Canelo Charlo stuff. Why don't we just start there, then we'll get to the Terence Crawford lawsuit against Top Rank. Breach of contract and claims of racial bias is actually involved in that contract, or in that lawsuit, by the way. But a handful of days ago, this Canelo versus Charlo rumors of them being in negotiations, deep in negotiations, right? That was the rumor. And it came from the good old sources, the sources say, which, of course, that's what you use to break news and all that, sources say. But sometimes it does become a bit of a joke, right? Oh, did sources say that? Are you sure? But anyway, Michael Coppinger of ESPN, what was he on, ESPN Ringside or something like that? But he was on a podcast, and he said that he doesn't think, he named Vitor Biev, he named the cruiserweight champ. I don't know if he talked about anybody else as far as Canelo Alvarez's next fight, but he said, I don't think they're going to fight any of those guys. I think he's going to fight Jermall Charlo, and that they are actually in talks for the fight to take place on Canelo's weekend, Cinco de Mayo. But Eddie Reynoso came out and said, hold on now. Slow your roll. We're not in deep talks with just one team. In fact, we're not all the way in talks just yet. Maybe they've had, minor little talks or whatever. But, he was basically like saying, hold on, dude. We're not deep in talks with them. So calm down, take a deep breath. Doesn't mean we don't want the fight. But he put the brakes on it. He put the brakes on it a little bit. Which, a lot of people all of a sudden, whichever they had, there's so many different opinions on this, right? Some people want to fight this guy, that guy. I've always kind of said, well, first of all, if he was going to go up to cruiserweight, I get it. And it's not like that cruiserweight champ. But, maybe he'll be there for a while. Maybe he won't. It's tough to say. Because obviously when you go to cruiserweight, you're going to probably pick and choose your way there. Which I'm not hating on that. It's just a big leap, especially if, it's your first fight up there. But I've always said, you're at 168. Why not just fight Charlo, fight Benavidez, fight David Morrell Jr. Okay, I threw that one in there at the end because he fights out of Minneapolis. Big shots out to the Cubanos, the Cubans. Why not do that and then move up? Just get it out of the way, because there is, and this is also a commentary, many people said this, if you jump up to cruiserweight, then you come back to light heavyweight, sometimes when you jump up and down, at times it can cost you. It can cost you. And Bivol and Beterbiev are not easy fights for different reasons. One, Beterbiev obviously has a lot of power. And Bivol has a lot more, he may be boring to some, no doubt, but he's got a lot of skill. He's got length. That's not an easy fight for him. My point is, you're going up pretty high. Now, you can make the argument that, he went up to fight, when he first went up to 160, technically he went by it, right? He fought a catchweight with Chavez Jr. before he fought Golovkin. I think that was 164 or something like that, because he had been fighting at that 155 weight, right, the Canelo weight. So that's not the biggest leap, obviously. Then, before he fought Jacobs at 160, he did jump up and fight Rocky, right? So he's done minor stuff like that, but, you're probably going to at least go to 180. 185. And I know his weight goes up a little bit, then he brings it back down, and 160 was getting tougher to make. If 168 is getting tough to make, then I could see it a little bit differently, but we haven't heard that from him, that 168 is tough to make. I just think that why not get it finished? Now, maybe you go up and test the waters at 175 after, like a full 175, and then maybe jump up and get that done and then come back. I don't know. I really don't know. But I would just, bouncing up and down, especially from 168 all the way to cruiserweight. And I know you don't have to go all the way to cruiserweight. I get that, because you don't have to weigh in an exact weight at cruiserweight. But there is a risk of that. There's a real risk of that. And like I said, stylistically, Bivol is a whole different ball game. You want to be at your best, and same with Beterbiev with that power. A lot of people think, he'll outbox him. That's cool, but Beterbiev can, he can land some hard ass punches. He's got real deal power. So we'll see. I'd assume that Al Heyman's going to offer Charlo first, and Benavidez has already got a fight coming up, more than likely against David Lemieux. And that's for the interim WBC. So the thing is, being that Canelo's the franchise champion with the WBC, there really is no Mando for that. But, rules are rules and guidelines are guidelines for the WBC and the rest of the sanctioning bodies. So I'm sure I don't know. Will they call it? Why would they call it if they know that there's not one? Because remember, called a WBC franchise, that goes from all the weights. Remember? That's what they told us. So I don't know. We'll see. I would like those two fights to happen and then go up to 175. Missing out on a Charlo fight, it is what it is. If you went to 175 and fought Bivol or Beterbiev, I definitely wouldn't be out here saying, like some folks just, you're ducking. Like, calm down, dude. So it's a duck to go fight Bivol at 175? Like, come on, dude. Now, Benavidez, he could probably comfortably go to 175. In fact, some people, including John, who calls in every week almost, they think he should go to 175. So I don't think you lose that fight, so you could still make the argument, still fight Benavidez at 175 if he did just forget 168. I think the Charlo fight would be done, though. And as far as selling here, like the biggest gate would be Charlo and Benavidez here. I know maybe some people will get, hot and bothered that I say that, or maybe not hot and bothered, but just flustered. Bivol and Beterbiev, they're just not. It's just not the same thing. And you can tell. I mean, Billy Joe Saunders has been around for a while. He fought on TV for a while. Fought on HBO. Oh, Box Lemieux on HBO, didn't he? Or was that the zone? I think it was HBO. But anyway, that did a damn good gate in a major, major stadium fight. But you saw they turned right around and did better at the gate. The Charlo and Benavidez is the biggest at the gate. Would Beterbiev be on pay-per-view? If he's still with ESPN, which there's rumors that he's not, I don't know. But if it were, it'd be on pay-per-view. I think for sure it would have to be. But I don't think it would do as good as the Charlo and Benavidez at the gate in on pay-per-view. Clearly, I mean, if Plant and him just did 800,000, then you could pretty much say 700,000 and up. I understand that the Undisputed thing was huge, but you can still call it the Undisputed Championship because he is the Undisputed. So, and both those guys are undefeated too, and that does matter for the casual fan. So we'll see. I'm not going to keep going too far in this. I saw a couple different out in the forum. I saw a tweets that Jermell Charlo, and this is don't rule it. Don't say, oh, this is fact. Don't quote me. Is what I'm trying to say. But there's some rumors going out there that Jermell Charlo is potentially headed back to Ronnie Shields. I don't know. I'm not really sure. I really don't know about that, to be honest with you. But there's rumors swirling. So we'll see where that goes. It's funny because, or interesting, I should say, that we've seen a large change in Jermell Charlo's power and his fighting style under his current trainer, at least that we think is still his current trainer, right? And Derek James, I'm talking about. But if you look at fundamentals and some of the things, that he used to do with Ronnie Shields, a lot of people complained about it then and said, "Oh, you're boring, this and that." But now people are calling for him to fight a little smarter and don't try to just land these big shots. Win some rounds and then set up a big shot. That's probably what you're gonna have to do in the second fight. So maybe that's on his mind. Like, hey man, I keep fighting this way. I make things harder for me. Maybe I should go back. I don't know. Some people think, oh, that means Charlo and Spence are gonna fight. Now that would be off the chain, but I wouldn't necessarily say that because they've been friends for a while. Before Derek James came in the frame, they've been friends for a while, so I'm not sure about that one. But we'll see. You never know. I mean, if I guess you could make the argument if Jermall Charlo goes up to 68, will he just stay there? And then maybe no matter what happens in this rematch in March, it sounds like, between Jermell Charlo and Brian Castano, he could go up to middleweight, and then that would leave Spence to come up too, because we know it's just a matter of fights, whether it's 2 fights or what, that Spence is going to come up to 54. Anyway, that's enough on that. Real quick on Crawford, Bernie the Boxer, according to a very biased yet entertaining source, Bernie the Boxer, he's a funny dude, I think. He's got a YouTube video and our channel. Got a YouTube video. I sound like I'm 80. But Bernie the Boxer says that Bud is actually heading up to 154. We've heard those rumors about he's going to put the pressure on the IBF to make him, the 147. Make him a Mando and then enforce it. Obviously, going the IBF route is the best possibility, but I don't know to get it called, but I'm not sure about that because he's probably going to go up to 54 anyway. But this is what Bernie the boxer says, that Bud is actually going up to 54. And he's going to use his WBO powers, because we know when you're a champion at whatever, sanctioning belt, you go up, that usually puts you either right on the Mando spot and you just get a title shot, or gets you real close to the number one ranking, or you get the number one ranking. So he says he's going to, and I'm not saying he, Terence Crawford, I'm saying Bernie the boxer, said he's going to 154 and try to go win a belt up there and do that thing. I don't know. I mean, if Brian Castano won the fight, that would be a pretty wild scenario, wouldn't it? If Crawford beat Spence to that up there. Now, obviously, when you have an undisputed champ, it takes, they got to go in order a lot of the time as far as the Mandos. And to be fair, Castano, prior to the Charlo fight, Castano, wasn't that like a box off, like a Mando thing for that? I believe it was. So how long will the IBF, or WBO, I should say, in this scenario, how long would it be before they would call it? You know what I mean? So I don't know. But that would be big. I mean, if Crawford could get any advantage on Spence right now, it only helps. Whether it's getting the first crack at Castano, I guess you could say a first crack at Charlo as well. I don't think there'd be a fight between him and Spence, Charlo, but that would be a big fight too. It'd be a really big fight, Charlo and Crawford. If Charlo wins, and also the talks about Thurman saying, "Hey, I'd be down to fight if I win, and I'm healthy. I'd be down to fight Crawford in the summer." That would be another advantage because he would get a shot at there wouldn't be any kind of leftovers. Yeah, you could say, "Oh, that's Manny Pacquiao's leftovers," sure, with Thurman, but you know what I'm saying. Spence hadn't fought him. Spence fought Kell Brook and Porter and all that, but he hadn't fought Thurman. So if Thurman came back and looked good enough against Barrios and was healthy, that would be another major thing. And we'll get into actually some of that talk later. But let's get into Terence Crawford. Sues top rank for breach of contract and claims of racial bias. This is Jake Donovan. Obviously, the guy, right? So this is going to be interesting here, to say the least. Obviously, there's something here, maybe, right? I mean, if he has if they breach the contract by not giving him, certain fights, then, or a fight, I should say, then they definitely have a case. Now, the racial part of it, I just saw someone on Twitter say, I don't even think you can sue with the grounds of race. It's like, boy, are you serious? Of course you can. What are you talking about? But anyway, it's harder to prove unless you have solid evidence that you can play him saying something, and would it even get to that? Like him recorded saying something, or enough eyewitnesses that were in a room, that not just about Crawford, but in general. We have heard the, swirling stuff about, black fighters in Top Rank as far as not just promoting them or lack of promotion at times or knowing how to promote them, and their mentality on, Bob towards Mayweather. Mayweather spoke a lot about, Bob didn't think black people came and paid for fights. They don't sell on pay-per-views, yada, 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 right? And obviously he was wrong. And clearly, look at Gervonta Davis. Look at his gates. It's one after another. He's obviously wrong. But, and there was also that, try to steer your fighters away from black fighters per se. Not all of them, but the tricky ones. And I mean like the crafty ones is what I mean. That, you know, that's the terminology we've heard that comes out of that camp, that they literally have this, you know, this rule about black fighters. Sometimes you can match them up, but if it's a slick black fighter, you know, maybe, you know, we'd advise you not to do that. You know, we've heard about that stuff. Cameron Duncan actually said that not long ago. Oh, where did he say that? I can't think of where he what podcast he said that on. But anyway, this is some of the stuff here involved in this, and I think is it Brian Friedman? I think Mikey Garcia actually. Through attorneys Brett Owen, Hector Cabarra, okay, alleged 2 separate counts of breach of contract, along with 1 count each of fraudulent misrepresentation. Specifically, Top Rank's failure to deliver a fight with Errol Spence in the manner in which it was promised. God, if this stuff's true, how many fights did they promise him? And it's just weird. Negligent misrepresentation, breach of impact, good faith, fair dealing, blah, 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 blah. I mean, I know this stuff isn't blah, 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 but it's a 23-page complaint. You know, basically he alleges racial bias against Crawford and African-American boxers, and just the treatment of. Here's some just more information on it, including those same black boxers that Top Rank is contractually obligated to promote. Because this is boxing, a sport with a checkered history, and because Arum is now dismissed as just a grumpy old man, Arum continues to make racist, bigoted statements and purposely damage the reputation of black boxers without consequences. This is generally because the affected boxers who are in long-term contracts with Top Rank fear that if they speak out, they'll be placed on the sidelines, not given an opportunity to fight through the life of their deal, which could be 5 to 7 years. Okay, it's an upwards of $10 million, including a specific amount of $4.5 million under the first breach of contract claim, and an unpaid $900,000 in the second breach of contract. I think that you owe me for every fight I get, and it was $1 million, but it actually sounds like now we heard it was reported $1 million. I guess it was $900,000, but that's for every fight. For every fight that doesn't involve Spence, I get extra money. Is basically what that was all about. We talked about that a while ago. I think in the summer. Some other specifics. Finding that Top Rank breached its contractual duty owed to Crawford. There is some specifics about, here we go. The filing comes nearly 2 months after Crawford entered his 10-year relationship with Top Rank, including a renewed 3-year agreement, which began October 2018. And we remember that because that's when a lot of us thought, wait, he's a free agent? And it turns out he still had some time left on his deal. And that's when Manny Pacquiao, right in that same frame, because he fought, what did I say, October 2018? He fought under the PBC in 2019 twice, Broner and Thurman. So January 2019, that's when he was already, you know, obviously they had to have decided by then. I can't remember if this is right around the time frame or not. The later agreement serves as the basis for complaint, focusing on the second year of the 3-year deal, where he only had 1 fight, for which he seeks the bulk of specific compensation. And before people start to go, oh, but in this year, this calendar year, he fought twice and all that, the agreement specified, 2018 agreement, was obligation by Top Rank to deliver 2 fights per contract year, October 13th, 2018 to October 12th, 2019. October 13th, 2019, October 12th, 20, and then, of course, October the next day, October 30th, last October, to this October 12th, 2021. It says the contract terms were satisfied during the first and third years, though it was the second year that largely serves as the basis for Crawford's legal pursuit. According to the complaint, Crawford was paid $3.5 million plus $45,000 in training expenses for his October 2018 fight with Jose Benavidez, right? The bout was the first under the new contract and marked the first defense of the WBA title, WBO. Top Rank completes its year one contractual commitment by delivering Amir Khan, that fight, right? Crawford won. He got paid $4.8 plus $50,000 for the training expense. That was April 2019. Crawford fought just once during the second contract period. Not calendar year, but contract period. I already saw multiple media members getting that a little wrong, or hardcore boxing fans getting that a little wrong there. They're thinking, a calendar year, but this is contract. So anyway, Crawford fought just one time in the second period, a ninth round stoppage. Mean Machine. He got paid $4 million for Mean Machine, another $50,000. The win over that was the win over Mean Machine was Crawford's only fight from October 13th, 2019 to October 12th, 2020. So, because the Kell Brook fight was technically in November, wasn't it? 2020. So Top Rank breached the 2018 agreement by failing to offer Crawford a second fight in that time frame. So that's like the biggest thing. So, if this contract stuff, which I assume is correct because you wouldn't be found in the lawsuit, but that's just an assumption. This is all an alleged. We're going to see how it plays out, whether it goes to actual court, whether there's a buyout, whether they just drop it. You never know. I'm not saying I know which way this goes, but this seems like there is something here. Okay, I'm not saying forget the race stuff, but let's put that to the side. If this is true right here, there's going to be something here. You know what I mean? That just seems like a normal thing. Now, he got paid $3.5, and that was during the coronavirus time frame with no crowds anyway. $3.5 for the Kell Brook, and then he got paid $6 million for the Sean Porter fight. Okay, so the average amount to like 4.5. The average purse amount from all those Fight Services Foundation for the compensation. So that's where they got the $4.5 million thing that Crawford believes he's owed. Okay. Now, that's if these are all legit things, right? Which I assume they are, but it's alleged at this point. It's a lawsuit, just got filed. Then I could understand that. Now, additionally, Crawford seeks compensation for Top Rank's failure to deliver a fight with Spence during that same period. Okay? According to the complaint, both parties entered into a championship bout agreement for a 12-round bout for Crawford to defend against, Mean Machine. Here it is. Here's the juicy stuff. During the negotiations in or about October 2019, Crawford and his negotiating team informed Aaron M. DeBuff, his stepson, that he would not take the fight for $4 million being offered to him. Aaron DeBuff informed Crawford that he should take the offer because a fight with Spence was right around the corner and that Top Rank could quickly make Spence-Crawford fight happen. In fact, Aaron DeBuff said Top Rank would include a Spence bonus. That's what I was talking about. In 2019, that Kavalauskas bout agreement in excess of $900,000. Aaron, blah blah blah, because they were confident they could make the fight happen with Crawford and Spence before the end of 2020. Now, this is obviously before, we knew there'd be no crowds or partial crowds when they're talking about this. Interesting, such discussion came up one day, and this is a kicker here. Such discussion came up one day after Spence's near-fatal single-car crash in Dallas. So which, obviously had him out of the ring for 14 months. So were they thinking, well, he's damaged goods now. Oh, we'll be able to get the fight because they'll be desperate. They're kind of funky, Nevertheless, Crawford accepted the Kavaliauskas fight under such terms. And so he's like, well, dude, it's basically the Spence bonus provision. He's looking for that. So, and I also read in other places, let's see if it says it in here, on ESPN through Coppinger, that he actually had some time left on his deal still. So here's Crawford, I guess, with a handshake and kind of a contract speculation, at least money, not saying you're going to for sure get it, but at least money, that, he's thinking, well, shit, now I've signed this longer deal, and it was a good deal financially, of course, but I signed this longer deal, but I could have been a free agent earlier, is probably what he's thinking too. And it goes on to say all the stuff that we've gone over a bunch of times, about Bob Arum and whatnot, and they're he basically says, in true Top Rank, a company with 0 black executives, only 2 or 3 black employees, refuse to admit that it simply doesn't care to support or how to promote black fighters. But the whole, well, he didn't make me into a pay-per-view guy, you can't really sue for that. This is also alleged that recently, while most businesses have become sensitive to the issue of race and social justice, Top Rank has not. At the time when most businesses took steps to honor black lives in the wake of George Floyd murder, Top Rank actually refused to place the Black Lives Matter logo on the mat of the boxing ring. And I don't know if he was suggesting that for a fight or whatever. You know what I mean? I don't know. And it's funny. It says, interestingly, not mentioned in the complaint were any claims of Arum efforts to secure the Manny Pacquiao fight, which, that's interesting that, a lot of people were talking about how that's going to be in it too, and they could use that. Multiple people were talking about how they could use the clip of Arum saying he actually stopped the negotiations for the Crawford Pacquiao because he felt bad for Pacquiao because Pacquiao was so past his prime. Remember, that's when he had just signed with Al Heyman. And I made a big stink about that. Some of the writers, kind of were like, oh, whatever. You're making too big of a deal about it. I don't think and then like a year and a half later, oh, we're going to make the fight. No, this is going to be great. So I don't think you could use that in court because you could also show them the other way. You know what I mean? So that I don't really know. I don't really know exactly how that's going to go, but we'll see where this thing goes. Good job by the senior writer there, Jake Donovan, as always. I'll say this. Actually, someone sent me this, and this is exactly one of the interviews I was talking about. This is Cameron Duncan on Barbershop Conversations. That's it, right? And he talked about that whole black fighter thing and how you're going to steer your fighter away from a black fighter. This is inside Top Rank. This is in their matchmakers. Like, sure, you can let some of the black fighters fight, but if he's crafty and skillful, you got to stay away from him. And when you hear about, now, would they be able to get Cameron Duncan in court saying this, and then multiple other people? That's where it gets tricky. And if they can get that, and that's already, part of they add to the lawsuit if it keeps going and say, hey, we actually have witnesses that say this. Well, then that might be a settlement. I don't know, but here you can judge for yourself on the comments here.
So I called the Mayweather gym and they said, Fred, if I give you this number, you have to ask him this question. And I said, okay, what's the question? And they said, ask Cameron Duncan, do Top Rank have columns of fighters? And they say, we don't want this guy fighting the black fighter. We don't want this fighter fighting the Mexican fighter, and so on and so forth.
You're going to get into the racial stuff, huh?
No, I'm not. I'm asking.
Theory there by the greatest matchmaker, probably, in my opinion, ever.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not going to mention his name either, but you know what I'm talking about.
Uh-huh.
And he used to have a thing up on his board, NBF, no black fighters.
And hold on, did you hear that? NBS, no black fighters. That it was on a blackboard, they said, or on a board up, like when you're kind of mapping out what you're doing with your fighters, just so you know, because he kind of breezed by that real quick.
Bring up a fighter. You know, and again, it's just, he used to say to me, you can go anywhere in the country, and I'm going to leave it at this. I don't want to go into a long discussion because people are people in God's eyes, and we're all the same. He used to say to me, you can go anywhere into a city in America or anywhere in the world and ask a white guy, and he didn't say any other, he didn't say anything about Hispanic, anything. Ask a white guy to throw a jab, and half of them are going to turn backwards and throw it like a girl and everything. Ask any black man on a street corner in any city in the world, and they will snap out a jab in a heartbeat. And I used to laugh. He said, they're just more physically gifted. And he said, and so they have speed, and better to stay away from them. Personal. So I said, okay. And I've lived by that. And
so that's the clip. Like I said, take, you know, whatever you want with it. They would need, you know, guys like this. Guys like Mayweather, because Mayweather has said multiple stuff about it. So yeah, that's that. We'll see what this. We'll see what comes with this. You know what I mean? It's tough to say exactly where we're going with it, what it is now. I do have to say for the record that Bob Arum, you know, according to Keith Eidick, this is on Boxing Scene 2, that he says, you know, Crawford's lawsuit is frivolous. Court will see the case as malicious extortion attempt. It is. As the malicious extortion. That's what he said. Okay. He says it's frivolous. Bud Crawford's lawsuit against Top Rank is frivolous, says the Harvard-educated. His vile accusation of racism is reckless and indefensible. He knows it, and his lawyer knows it. So we got to be fair and just let this thing play out. If, in fact, it does play out, if, in fact, there's a settlement or whatever. Like I said, get thrown out. Who knows? Speaking of, Rolly Romero says investigation into sexual assault allegations now closed. No charges. Okay? Does this mean he's, 100% free? It doesn't. Well, not free because he's never arrested and stuff like that. But, it doesn't. We don't know exactly where this thing's still going to go. This is Jake Donovan again. This is from Jake Donovan's Boxing Scene article. After 2.5 months of my name being slandered with false accusations, this is Rolly, obviously. Missed opportunity, cheated out of my dream in a massive amount of wealth. The investigation into the allegations made against him or against me are formally closed. That's what he said on a verified social media account. Charges were not filed because the allegations could not substantiated because, as I've always stated, I'm innocent. Despite his claim, this is Jake talking, the state of the case does not completely clear him of any wrongdoing. Rather, Henderson PD authorities was not in position to proceed at this further time. So just want to give both sides of that as well. So what else we got here? What else we got on the docket? We'll talk about the DAZN schedule a little later. We're going to light up some folks to make up for last weekend down the stretch of the show, the Boxing Twitter segment, where we read the tweets of the week. We have some fun with some, fanboy tweets. And then the media members, we expose them for the cheerleaders and fanboys that some of those are. You can clearly see they're getting paid to say this. I mean, it's been proven, not just in court, but just in general. They've come out and admitted it, especially ever since the zone came around here, with Eddie Hearn. I mean, we've seen it. So I definitely will be getting those folks handled. One thing real quick we'll just stay in this media realm here. I did find it funny. Listen to Chris Mannix and Dan Raphael talking about the Charlo and Canelo fight, the possibility of it. And, of course, Andrade see, it's just in my head right there. Of course, Mannix had some funny stuff to say involving Andrade. Dan Raphael made a point about Andrade. We'll start with the clip, and then we'll go from there. Okay, this is what Mannix was talking about real quick. We're just going to play a short clip.
Sure. Do you think it's a bad look for Canelo if he picks Charlo over Andrade in this next fight? Because, if you want to kind of connect some dots here, do you think it's a bad look for Canelo if he picks Charlo over Andrade in this next fight? Because, if you want to kind of connect some dots here.
So when he says connect some dots, and Dan Raphael kind of added his thoughts on this too. I'm not going to play all the clips, okay? Just so you know. But just kind of talk about what they're going to say. They're going to say that at 54, Andrade had a belt, and then he went to 160, and Canelo never fought him at 154 for the belt, never fought him at 160, and then and this is Dan Raphael talking too, he said, well, maybe he goes up to 168 and forces the mandatory through his side of it. What was that, the WBO? Forces the mandatory because he's WBO champion at 160, go up to there, force the Mando, and then if Canelo doesn't want the fight, at least you can get some kind of minor hardcore push off of, hey, this guy dropped the belt because he doesn't want to fight me. And Raphael went on to say that if you look at the one, because you could make you could make the argument that neither guy deserves the fight, Charlo or Andre, right? And if you want to think that, that's fine. But Raphael said, well, Dan said, hey, he's got the better resume. Neither of them have a great resume at 160, obviously. But he has the better resume. And if you look at the top 4 fights that he fought or top 5 at 160, you can make an argument of that as far as the top 5 versus top 5 of who not top 5, but the last 5 fights or whatever. But you can also make the point that Charlo fought Derevyanchenko, which was the best fighter at 160, either one of them had faced. So you could go down Dan's point, and they didn't make that point, by the way. They just made Dan's point, saying he's fought better talent at 160. And like I said, if you put the names together, okay, sure, let's go down that path. But you also got to bring up Derevyanchenko's the best fighter. If you compare Charlo and Andrade at 160, Derevyanchenko's the best fighter either of them had faced at that time, right? And then, you can say Derevyanchenko, Austin Trout, an unbeaten, J-Rock at the time that plenty of people thought he'd lose. That was at 54, those 2 fights I mentioned. But the funny thing is, he says, well, he didn't fight him at 54. He had a belt down there, Andre. This is what these two are both saying. And then he didn't fight him at 160, and he's not looking to fight him at 68. Well, you could say the same thing about Charlo, but even more. And Dan said that the move to go to 68 to make him drop the belt, try to get a little buzz, that already happened. Now, he didn't drop the belt. It got a franchise. It got franchised, just like it happened to Lomachenko and Devin Haney. I think people kind of forgot about this. But at 54, well, guess who had a belt at 54, Charlo? So it's similar. He had the WBC belt, or interim belt, right? He got ranked in WBC, got an easy fight, put himself in position, tried to make himself the mandatory, and the WBC brought the franchise on him. And also what they didn't mention or talk about, and I'm not saying Golovkin should have fought him at this time because he had a second fight come up with Canelo, so I get it. But remember, the WBC did say, they did call for Golovkin and Charlo to fight, and the winner gets Canelo. Because Charlo was always like, hey, you guys can fight again. I get it. You guys are the biggest names. I just want the winner. Right? So that stuff already did happen. So it's just funny how – and then Dan went an extra mile and said, you know, I'd rather see the cruiserweight fight out of all the fights. Like if I had to choose between Charlo or Bivol, who's boring, he's just so bored. That last fight was so boring. And Mannix even said, man, if he would have, knocked out his last opponent, maybe that would have put him over. It's like, dude, but literally, Dan Raphael said he'd rather see the cruiserweight fight more than these other fights we're talking about. I can't remember if he said better be for sure in there. But that's just funny, too. Like, so you want him to go against the lesser fighter at cruiserweight. And I get it. If Canelo went to do that, that's a legacy thing. That's something to say you did. You're going to make a ton of money doing it. I get it. I'm not going to rip him for it. But I'm not going to say I want that fight first before an Andrade or Charlo or Bivol fight. That's silly to me. So let's kind of leave that alone. But it was funny how they were describing Andrade when they could have literally, said the same thing factually about Charlo, except he already went through the process of trying to make him his Mando, Canelo. So it just shows you, Mannix, the guys that got to tell you, I say this all the time, the folks that, not just guys, of course, but the folks in boxing, whether it's part-time media or full-time media or plugged-in fans or boxing historians on Twitter, the more they got to tell you that they call it down the middle, it just gets old because it's like, well, dude, you say this a lot, but then look at this dumb shit. We get it. You get paid by the zone. That's a portion of your income. You work for them. That's okay. That's no problem. But it's just funny how, and I'm glad that Andrade, after, not in the post-ring interview, but after, in more of a, I think it was just during the DAZN post-fight show, I'm pretty sure that was when he was like, hey, guys, stop with this just only calling for Charlo when Charlo's not on this platform, And I'm cool, Mannix will say, I don't care where the fight takes place and all that. That's a bunch of bullshit, really. I mean, yeah, of course you're going to watch it. But, a lot of this, the Eddie Hearn thing now, when it comes to Charlo, now, he's like the major contributor to why, Andre can't get a big fight because of Charlo. It's all Charlo's fight. But everyone wants to run a division. And I'm not talking about fighters. I'm talking about, promoters, PBC, Top Rank, Matchroom, whatever, right? Everybody wants to have the key guys in the division because it's much easier to make the fights when you have them. And we've seen in the last few years since these platforms have gotten deals with ESPN and with Fox and all that, and DAZN's come on the scene, that's what you got to do. And Eddie Hearn now says, I'm willing to, have the fight anywhere. I don't care. But at the beginning, when he first came here, the first 2 years, he wasn't saying that shit. He was saying, Charlo, if you want any fight, it's on. I've literally, let you listen to the audio. If you want any fight, you got to be a DAZN fighter to get it. And it didn't work out for him. And beyond the first year, he hasn't been able to make consistent quality middleweight fights, even though at one time, and of course, Canelo's not a middleweight anymore, but at one time, he had all these middleweight champions. And he said, Charlo, he literally said it. So it didn't work out for him, so now he's changed his tune, right? Just like Bob Arum. He'll change his tune when it works for him, when it doesn't. Golden Boy, everybody does. When Danny Jacobs, this isn't even changing tune, but when Danny Jacobs knew that, there was nothing at BBC past Peter Quillen, so I do got to go to HBO to get fights. Well, the first guy he got, and I've said this before, he got Golovkin. First, he got a 3-fight deal after that, or 2-fight deal with HBO because he fought so well in that Golovkin fight. I mean, it's real basic shit. The first fight he got on the Zone wasn't Andre, wasn't somebody else. It was Canelo. But you notice that they don't do that for Charlo. They don't give him Golovkin, and they don't give him that, and they don't give him Canelo. So it kind of works both ways. I'm kind of sick of talking about that, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. But I did think that Mannix, and for Dan to say he'd rather see the cruiserweight fight rather than Bivol or Charlo, I think that's just ludicrous, dude. It's just, wow, We will get to the Tim Smith stuff. I want to check out the DAZN schedule. Or not check it out. I've already checked it out, but give my take on it the first quarter. I think it's pretty good. I like it. A lot of crossroads fights. One just top-level fight. A few, whatever. And we haven't seen all the undercard fights. We should say that. But there's some crossroad fights that I'm really looking forward to. There was a little thing that I didn't get to last week as well, and that was Jake Paul's claim that Floyd hadn't paid him for the June pay-per-view. Now, he didn't specify back-end money on pay-per-view money, because we've heard they're reported, anyway, purses for it. So he was paid something up front. That's what it sounds like. But, I mean, in general, like that, it didn't clear the check he gave me, or I didn't get paid, or does he mean on the back end of the pay-per-view? And we know that those checks take a little longer. Jake Paul hasn't been in the pay-per-view business long. He did do that one pay-per-view with his brother. And what was that guy he fought? Somebody help me out. Kasai. But that was a YouTube pay-per-view. That wasn't like your traditional pay-per-view. So, I don't know if that's true. We're going to find out more about that. But I did want to mention that because I thought it was worth at least mentioning. Jake Paul says Floyd didn't give him all his money or didn't get paid it. I don't know. I don't really know. And like I said, that could be back-end money waiting for the other part of the contract money. I have no clue. I'm just talking about it real quick. Okay, let's get into the DAZN stuff. Then we'll get Timmy Smith stuff, and then we'll go through some fight news, some current fight news, and then we'll finish like we normally try to with the boxing Twitter segment. Okay. Oh, yeah, someone sent me this too. That what do I think about Tyson Fury's comments on AJ and on Usyk? Well, the AJ stuff, calling him a big dosser, losing to a blown up middleweight or whatever he said. I don't really look into that too much because that's just useless dosser. I mean that's what that's how Tyson Fury talks, right? That doesn't do much for me. As far as, oh, my God, he called him a dosser? No way. But the other stuff, this is some of his comments. You know what I can't believe? That AJ has gone and given the Ukraine all the heavyweight belts back after all the hard work retrieving them. You're a big useless. Now, here's the other part that I, have something to say about. And this is the Usyk stuff. He said, you let what did he say? Where is it? Okay. He says, you let a little steroid man come up from middleweight and sit above you and take all your belts. and he's talking about steroid man and Usyk, like Usyk took steroids to get up to that weight and look good at it or whatever, right? I mean, that's what he's basically trying to say. Well, first of all, do you have evidence of that? Do you have evidence of that? Second of all, for him to be talking about steroids and PEDs when he popped, and it basically turned out to be a 2-year suspension. He popped for PEDs. A lot of people just think he popped for cocaine, and he did pop for that too. But, and don't get me wrong, the UCAD stuff was real funky. It looks like if you have some money, you could sue them, and it could bankrupt them possibly. So they just kind of go, okay, yeah, my bad, here, this. I don't know. But this is all alleged stuff. But, it's not alleged that he did test positive. So, I think Klitschko said this, something about a glass house, You shouldn't be throwing stones in a glass house, and he's exactly right, because that is pretty freaking ridiculous to sit there and talk about that. You know what I mean? I think that's pretty damn ridiculous. So, because it's like, dude, you already got busted for this. So what are you talking about Usyk for, dude? What are you worried about Usyk for? You're the one who got caught, So anyway, as far as DAZN's schedule coming up, like I said, there's one fight that I would say is like super high level, the creme de la creme, the best fight on the schedule. That's obviously Estrada versus Gonzalez 3. Hell of a fight. First fight was damn good. Second fight was awesome. Third fight, bring it on. I love it. That's March 5th, I believe, on DAZN. So clearly, that's a great fight. And that stands out well above all of them, right? Now, Okoli and Victor Ortiz Jr., or Virgil Ortiz Jr. I like both those fighters. I'm going to watch the fight. I do a podcast, in case you didn't know. I do watch the fights. But I'm not going to sit there and add them in. The schedule's not brilliant, first of all. But that's just promoter talk, right? But those two fights, I understand that people are talking about how, Virgil Ortiz's opponent, McKinnison, is an outside boxer, doesn't have much power, but it's a style he hasn't seen as much, so it's going to be a good development fight. Sure, that's fine. That's cool, Maybe that'll help him in the future. But those two fights do nothing for me. Still going to watch them, but they don't do shit for me. However, the theme here for me is either step up like Lee Wood and Michael Conlon. To me, that's a step up. And then the rest of them, Munguia Ballard, that does nothing for me either. I forgot about that. Those three fights, Munguia, Okoli, and Ortiz Jr., those do nothing for me, those three. Now, you can sit there and rip and say, oh, dude, but I understand every schedule is going to have a variety of stuff. We're not asking for 50-50 every time out. But these are showcase fights. That's what they are. Get mad at me if you want. That's fine. However, the step-up fight, Wood and Conlon, right? And then, pretty closely matched crossroads fights, which I really enjoy most of the time. When you put them on paper, sure, anything can happen when you put it on paper, right? Sometimes, like I mentioned earlier, when they meet at the crossroads, some dude's like, I've already, I got a flat tire 5 miles down the road. I've already crossed my crossroads, so I'm done. But a lot of times you get that desperation of that next big fight, whoever wins it. And you can make that case with Jacobs and Ryder. You can make that case for sure with Martinez and Warrington. That's a pretty big fight. Warrington needs to look good in that fight. If he doesn't, it might be curtains for him as far as big fights. And Vargas and Smith is just a Callum Smith, Jesse Vargas, that's just a good fight. It's just it's a good TV fight. It's good. It is good. I like that fight. So I like this schedule. I think it's a solid schedule. When you look at 1, 2, 3, 4 fights can be in the category of either crossroads or step up. 3 of them are on paper mismatches, and one of them is just a great fight. So all in all, especially for a first quarter, I like the schedule. I like what a lot of it was both, right? It's both the zone here and there, I suppose. I like it. I like it a lot. I think it's a good schedule. It'll be interesting to see. Like I said earlier, the Showtime schedule and what will they usually will take it all the way to May, sometimes June. So if we can get that in the coming weeks, and then they make Spence Ugas official as far as I think it's pretty much official. It just hasn't been announced yet. We'll see if Fox has any other stuff or an FS1 stuff. I don't really know, but this schedule, some other fights, ESPN and Sky Sports and stuff like that. But then, if you add Showtime schedule onto that, that's a pretty damn good first quarter. And then it sets us up nicely for April, May, and June. So, yeah, I'm on board. I like that schedule. I think it's a solid schedule. Like I said, I don't call too many stuff brilliant like that per se, but it's good. I like it. I think it's solid. I really do. Okay, so we're going to go on to a little bit of fight news. I do want to mix it up. I'm going to go fight news, then I'm going to go Tim Smith, then I'm going to go boxing Twitter, okay? This was a little bit ago now, but Alicia Baumgardner, she did sign a multi-fight deal with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, and I think that is a great call because, women's boxing, Matchroom is doing a great job with that. Not just good, a great job with that. So, I think that's a good call. Oh, someone sent me this. This is actually Klitschko. You live in a glass house, and someone needs to take away your stones. It wasn't long ago before our fight where you actually test positive. Anyone can Google it. Keep it classy. That's pretty funny. Okay, so I believe we talked about this last week. Jose Ramirez and Jose Pedraza was set for March 5th. That got rescheduled. It was flu-like symptoms. He was ill, Jose Ramirez. But was it COVID? Did he end up getting COVID? I can't remember. But either way, it's not happening on February 5th. And then also on February 5th, Jesse Vargas just tested positive for COVID, and now that fight is off. So Vargas and Smith is off. Liam Smith, I'm speaking of. Looks like they're going to try to move it back to, do I have a quote on that? I think back to March, because he isn't feeling like major symptoms, so he should be able to bounce back. So, yeah, that's that. And now you look at January 5th, in the States anyway, and now it's just that Keith Thurman card. So we thought we had 2 other cards in that pay-per-view in one night. So that really does open up nicely for them anyway. So, it is what it is there. What else we got for fight news? Oh, here's Eddie Hearn in that the most recent IFL TV interview. Eddie Hearn also, he talked about Canelo. He doesn't think Canelo is going to face Makabu in his next fight in May. Hearn explained that he'll likely present his offers to Canelo and Eddie, as will others, and expect them to make a decision in the coming weeks. It's just pretty straightforward. You know what I mean? Michelle Riviera signs a pact with Al Heyman. That's good. He's got an interesting run here. So he's a fun fighter to watch. We'll see where he goes. So he fought, in October? I think that's what it said. Yeah, October against Romero, I believe. And so they're looking to get him lined up here for a fight somewhat soon. So that's a good, it's a good signing. Might as well. You're already doing it. This is a quote from Anthony Joshua from the Sky Sports interview, which I've only seen clips of. I haven't been able to see the full thing, but he says, there was always a stigma that I can't box. I'm a big bodybuilder, so I said, cool, let me practice my boxing. I tried practicing my boxing with Alexander Usyk. He won 9 rounds. I won 3. Next fight, I will win 4 more, and I win. I've been based in Sheffield and had a good chat with my coach. I want to try some new things, a new environment to get me inspired again and take the heavyweight division by storm. New environment, work with some new coaches, and go to war. It's a warrior mindset. Now, when he said I was practicing my boxing, and this is funny because Beyond the Gloves, here's what their video title is. News, right? It says news. Joshua admits he used Usyk fight to practice boxing skills. I mean, how fucking dumb is that? First of all, I remember during the week in the buildup of the fight, Anthony Joshua said he's going for a knockout. That's what everybody wants. He's a smaller dude. I'm going for the knockout. Now, obviously, he was saying that. Well, I shouldn't say obviously, but as the way it turns out, he was saying that, but that didn't really, you know what I mean? That didn't, maybe he got buzzed early and said, screw that. Maybe he was saying it so he thought Usyk would just come out and brawl. But he tried to go kind of skill for skill, which was a bad deal there. Also in that interview, Eddie Hearn talked about Tony Yoka. And Yoka does want to accept the fight with Hrgovic for that IBF final eliminator, and said they started speaking in top rank about making it happen, which that would be great. That would be great. Edgar Berlanga and Steve Rolls are set to fight at the Madison Square Garden in the Hulu Theater March 19th. So it'll be nice, to get him back. And then if he's successful, he'll probably fight June 11th at Madison Square Garden. Of course, on the eve of the annual National Puerto Rican Day Parade in Manhattan. And we need that back, baby. Not the parade. The parade's going to be there. I'm saying we need that weekend back, man. That's a big weekend. That's a good weekend. Couple of other news items. Oh, Conor Benn to fight Robert Guerrero or Mauricio Hooker, says Eddie Hearn. Broner, this is what he said to Broner, to ESPN about Broner. Broner would like a fight because he's now on a crusade of seriousness. He says he's ready for Conor, but wants, to fight in March if possible. If not, 2 names, Guerrero and Hooker, the O2 Arena. So basically, Broner just wants a fight to, get good. Now, here's a fight that hasn't been announced, but it will be announced in the coming weeks for sure on Showtime. This is going to be a good fight. This is a legit fight. Roger Gutierrez, who is the real, quote-unquote, WBA champ, the former interim or regular, whatever WBA, he got stripped of it, but Roger Gutierrez and Chris Colbert will fight in a headline Showtime card. This is Keith Idec. He's saying February 26th. And that was the working date for Charlo and Castaño, so that kind of makes sense that would be that. So that's dope. I like that fight because now, if the WBA wants to figure shit out, well, figure that shit out then. Let's have them fight. So I'm pumped for that fight. Gary Russell Jr., my father had his foot amputated. I've been somewhat training myself. This is according to Keith Idec. Well, according to Gary Russell Jr. Man, I feel for him, man. I feel for the father there and the family and everything. They're a tight-knit family. That sucks, dude. That's rough. I heard it was diabetes, man. Man, that's nasty. That is tough. Some more news. This is the Daily Star Sport is all over the place, right? But they have a headline once again, and we've talked about this a couple times. BT Sport set a set for massive takeover, boxing giant DAZN Premier League rights. So that's that whole they're going to buy him out thing, right? That's what they've been talking about for a while. That their sports streaming service is nearing a deal to acquire BT Sports for an estimated $800 million. The purchase is expected to give access to the highly sought-after rights to Premier League and the UEFA Champions League matches. And we've always said that this would, they're successful in Italy with that. They've been successful in Japan for quite some time. They haven't had success here yet, but that would be monstrous for the UK or for DAZN, those rights. And then boxing too. I mean, that combination would be deadly. That would mean so many more subs over there. That would be phenomenal for them. There's just no doubt about it. Now, of course, at the end they say, and actually, did they bring up Discovery? Oh, representation of BT and DAZN along with rival bidder Discovery Inc. So Discovery's trying to jump on this. That's right. Are yet to comment. The later emerged as rival bidder. When discussed, with those two. The Sunday Telegram previously claimed that the U.S. media company, which owns European sports network Eurosport, offered to form a joint venture with BT, which is being considered as an alternative to a sale. While Discovery is still in discussions, DAZN is viewed as a leading contender at the moment, according to two sources cited by Redders. And, they also say, of course, this shit could fall apart. It happens. Who knows? I don't know. So they go on and talk about how much the deal's worth and whatnot. So, yeah. But that would be a huge, huge deal. I mean, talk about a get. I don't know what that would mean for the actual subscription amount. Of course, like Sky Sports and BT. BT, I believe, is subscription-based too. So, same as Sky Sports. So, but yeah, that would be massive, and that would help boxing in the UK that much more. I really do think that, because that would bring that many more people. If they can land some big fights on that streaming, more power to it, because we get those fights too. But man, like in the U.S., I'm saying. But oh, by the way, Dillian White for another week or so. Dillian White's going to appeal that 80-20, which makes sense. Yeah, let's see, news-wise. I think that's about it for news. We'll get into the boxing Twitter in a little bit. I think that's about it. Okay, people are telling me, okay, Caleb Plant did target Jermall Charlo. He views him as easy work. He said easy work. I want that work, Maybe that fight's next. I don't know. I doubt it, though. So, move on to, what did I say, Tim Smith? Yeah, Tim Smith. Tim Smith on the PBC podcast was talking about the Crawford, Spence, and how there's really not necessarily the money there to make the fight, right? And this is a bigger picture thing. We talked about pay-per-view a lot. I don't want to drag the audience through this over and over again. It gets old. But as far as Tim Smith goes, you can agree with a lot of what he says. You can disagree. But a lot of stuff he says, maybe you don't like the way he says it or whatever. But it is true. Terence Crawford in multiple interviews has said the money's not there for the fight yet. Bob Arum has said that too. So it is what it is. But it's true. We just listed out, $4 million for that guy, $4.5 million for that guy, $6 million for Porter. If you got $6 million for Porter, Crawford, well, then obviously the number is going to be bigger than $6 million. Now, does that mean 7 or 8 or 9 or 10? I don't know. Was he willing to do? Didn't they try to didn't Bob Arum try to give him $10 million straight up to fight Pacquiao? And I think the rumors were reported that he was willing to take 8, but a percentage on the back end. I don't know. I like to talk reality. Okay, here's an example. Kevin Iole just had he was talking about fighters being overpaid, and he said Devin Haney made $5 million in his last fight, and I think he said 4 against Linares. Let's just say $4 million, right? 4 or 5, whatever. Let's call it 4. So I heard it was 4. He's saying it's 5. So it is true, though. Like, if you wanted to make – and I'm not saying they're going to make this fight in 2022, okay? If you want to make a fight, Gervonta Davis against Devin Haney, and he just got $4 or $5 million in that type of fight, what do you think he's going to need to fight Gervonta Davis? And is it fair, like LRB said, too? Well, so I got to sit there and overpay someone like $7 million, $8 million just to fight him just because they're overpaying him? Time and time again, you heard media and part-time media talking about, when Thurman and I'm going to go quick on this, but Thurman and Danny Garcia fought, did a really sizable gate, and then it also did a major rating, right, on NBC. And I remember people saying, man, they're both getting paid $1 million, and I think it was more than that, but that was what the purse, the official purse statement was. We all know that's usually, not always, but sometimes more, especially with Heyman fighters, but they would be like, God, they're both making $1 million, this, that, and the other. They're freaking out that these guys are making this kind of money, but then turn around and be like, well, they're making too much money, but then why aren't you now putting those fights on free TV instead of pay-per-view? Well, you got done saying that they shouldn't make that much money, even though Danny Garcia was known as a ticket seller. But my point is, time and time again, you'd hear that when it came to Al Heyman. Now you're hearing only fighters are getting paid, but it's not Eddie Hearn's fault. Case in point, $10 million for Mikey Garcia and Jesse Vargas. I mean, that's an overpay. The overpays that giving Golovkin $15 million, even if they gave him $7.5 million and the other $7.5 were in stock, that's still over. $7.5 million to fight Stevie Rolls is still an overpay. But it was supposed to be $15 million or whatever. My point is, now we're hearing the fighters are making too much, and that is true, a lot of them, no doubt. I mean, we just said Crawford for $4 million to fight, or $3.5, $4 million for Benavidez. Like, that is an overpay. I get it, but part of the reason, to draw it back here, that's part of the reason why it is tougher to make this fight. We're not even talking about purse split. We're not even talking about 60-40, 50, 50-50. We know what Crawford's thoughts are on what the purse split should be. We know what Spence's thoughts are on what the purse split should be. Spence has said, 60-40 sounds like a good number. He's joked about 70-30, and then he even went as high as saying, I might have to 80-20 him. I thought that was a joke, but whatever. He said it. I just want to put it out there. But 60-40, which I think is a fair deal for Crawford. But when Crawford hears news of that, to be fair, he does say that the fight can't happen for 60-40. If anything, I'm the 60-40. I'm the A side because he has more accomplishments, and he means, belts at different weight classes. But we all know who's fought the better fighters. And who produces revenue is what it comes down to, Time and time again, even Floyd Mayweather, before he started producing a lot of revenue, he used to say, I should be the number one paid guy in boxing. I'm the best. I'm the pound for pound. And, he made those correct statements. He was the best. He was pound for pound. But until he got to fight Gotti, until he got to fight Zab Judah, and then ultimately Oscar De La Hoya, he wasn't a guy that, brought in a ton of revenue. But the second he got the opportunity, it was a successful pay-per-view with Gotti and Zab and whatnot. So this is how this fight could be made. The best possible chance of Crawford and Spence being made within about a year's time. And that doesn't, and I know people don't want to hear about 2023. Okay, I know you don't want to hear about it, but I'm here to be realistic about this shit. Okay? That's what I'm here to do, and that usually helps you along with what you think a fight, when a fight can happen. It'll be the same people that says, I just want the best to fight the best, but then they'll bring up business stuff for other stuff. So it's like, this is realistic of the business, dude. This is how it would happen, right? The best possible chance, let's say. So Thurman, or what am I saying? Spence and Ugas fight, and it sounds like in April. Okay, that's what it sounds like they're going to fight. Maybe it'll be March, but it sounds like they're April because Spence said April, and he knows the fucking date, right? So, and Ugas did say March or April, but Spence recently said no, it's going to be in April, right? So he fights Spence Ugas. Let's say, now I'm not saying Ugas doesn't have a good chance to beat him because he does, especially with all the unknowns from the injuries and all that and the time out of the ring on the Spence side. But let's just, in theory, since we're talking about Spence and Crawford, let's just, because I know people are going to mess with me, no, Ugas is going to beat him. This is theory, okay? So Spence beats Ugas, let's say, right? Crawford fights someone. Maybe, like Bernie the boxer said, he'd go to 54 for a fight, just to go up there, see what's up, see if he can get a shot at the undisputed. I doubt it in that time frame. I don't know when the WBO belt is due compared to the other ones. I think that the other ones are ahead. I think the WBC is actually ahead. But anyway, so they fight. Spence moves on and wins. Now, Spence also has a potential WBA Stanonius and Butayev winner. He may, to keep that WBA belt, he might have to fight Stanonius and Butayev winner. Maybe. There could be a step aside, too, as we know, right? Now, here's the deal. If Thurman wins February 5th over Barrios, there's a good chance Thurman's going to be a big fight. Whether that would be Crawford or Spence, I don't know. It would make sense for it to be Thurman, for Spence and Thurman this summer. Or not this summer, but later this year, because if he fights in April, he's probably not going to fight this summer. So that's a possibility, right? Now, life after Crawford, maybe Thurman would still be there. Or if Crawford, and I don't know if he's talked to Al Heyman or not. I don't know if Al's reached out to his side. I don't know if Crawford's reached out to his side, but they need to reach out at least to check the temperature. Because it's going to be a multi-fight deal, more than likely. But if he could fight if Thurman gets through Barrios February 5th, if Crawford could fight Thurman, and then Spence fights his mandatory, that could work too. And that would be a good look, much like if he could somehow land the undisputed Crawford, at 54, that'd be a great look, right? But if he could get Thurman too coming off a win, that would be great because that's not a Spence leftover. And I know, like I said earlier, that people say, oh, it's a Pacquiao leftover. That was 2.5 years ago. Actually longer probably now. So my point is Crawford would get to face, Kell Brook and Porter were after Spence already beat him. So to get to have Crawford get a shot at Thurman first, that would be nuts. That would take a multi-fight deal, which, if he was willing to extend Top Rank in 2018, he should be able to. He's not Canelo, folks. He's not Canelo. So he should be able to do that, And even a handshake, like Mikey Garcia was a fight-by-fight. And, on a fight-by-fight, knowing each other, whatever, Garcia and Al talking, Mikey was able to get a comeback fight. He was able to get a highly ranked at 130 anywhere, at 140 anyway, 135 actually. Or was it 140? Yeah, it was 135. I can't remember the dude's name, but he knocked him out right away. He was also able to get Broner and Easter Jr. and Spence. And it was fight by fight. Now, ultimately, he didn't have to pay him all this money that DAZN was going to pay for Jesse Vargas and that too. So it goes both ways, but he probably felt more comfortable because he had assets to give him. Well, whether he has to sign or not, and I think, Crawford obviously is a bigger threat to beat Spence than Mikey was. So I'd assume he'd have to sign a multi-fight deal, but it shouldn't be that big of a deal because, they have all the welterweights. So, the big names anyway. So my point is, however this mixture happens, whether Spence fights Thurman later in the year or, which would be dope too if Crawford fought Thurman, and then Spence got his mandatory out of the way, and then February 2023 they fight. And that would only be a Fox thing probably because Fox has the Super Bowl. So they could do, the conference final, the playoffs, which is going on, starts this Saturday. They could advertise the Spence-Crawford fight through the playoffs, maybe get a little spot during the Super Bowl, maybe. Not as much as the Wilder, Fury, obviously, and I'm sure Fox, but if Fox could own the whole fight rather than split it, maybe they would give him a little look during that, quick little look. But either way, to make the fight happen, to get the buzz going, that's probably the best way right now, especially when Spence didn't beat Pacquiao to, pass the torch to an extent anyway. Not like it was a handful of years ago, but it's still some sort of torch passing, right? That would, from, these next several months, building, having them both fight, building their name. I mean, if Crawford and Thurman fought on Fox, they'd promote the shit out of that. So that'd be a promotional run. That'd be a promotional run that Crawford's never had, the way Fox does it, way in advance. So that's the only way that fight's going to happen. I don't think it's going to just go Ugas, Crawford. And Crawford fights somebody and then fights him. I'd love it if that's how they close the year. I would absolutely love it. And like I said, you can, CBS, Showtime could be involved in this. You never know. I mean, they did sneak up and get the Canelo plant when most of us thought that was Fox. Eddie Hearn kept saying it was Fox. But maybe that had to do with the money they didn't make, Fox, in Spence Pacquiao, because Spence had to pull out. Maybe that had something to do with it. And they were like, hold on. So I don't know. But that's probably the most realistic way that it would happen. And maybe it would be just a two-fight thing. Maybe Spence fighting his Mando could somehow just be on regular Showtime or even better, on CBS, But I really don't know. I just think that that's how it would be needed to build. And if anyone's going to complain about that beyond your Spence or Crawford fanboys, that'd be ridiculous if you complain about that. If they mapped it out like that, that'd be the bomb. That would work for me. And I think that would be probably the best way for it to realistically happen at 147. Because I believe this next 12 months, it's like he's going to move up to 54 Spence. And obviously Crawford, according to Bernie, his guy, Bernie the boxer, is going to be up there maybe too. I don't know. So maybe they end up fighting at 54. But what we do know is before that injury, with Spence, he was going to fight Ugas, but the Pacquiao fight popped up. And he said, I'm going to fight these dudes. I'm going to fight Pacquiao. Did he say Ugas too? I think he said, I'm going to fight Pacquiao, maybe Ugas, and then Crawford. Or was it just Pacquiao, Crawford, then I'm going to 54? He said something like that. But he did definitely include that. He included that I want Crawford, and we're going to see if we can make that fight. If not, move on. So that's what I think of Tim Smith's comments. That's what I think of realistically making it. Could Tim said it a different way? Yes. Sure. But what he's saying, he's not really far off on it all. He's right on the money in most of it. Anyway, boxing Twitter segment. Oh, yeah. We got some dandies. This is Victor Ortiz's 2020 fight goal. Let's go, he said. This is his goal. Number 1, Jake Paul, tune-up fight, he calls it. Number 2, Canelo Alvarez. Oh, wow. Number 3, Danny Garcia. Number 4, Terence Crawford. Number 5, Errol Spence. Friends are friends, but my career is first. Hashtag my kids, hashtag family. So he wants to tune up and then forget Dan. It should be Danny Garcia. I mean, how are you gonna go to Canelo after the tune up and then fight Danny Garcia after? Like, if you go ahead, I'll just say he'll beat Canelo, right? So Vic beats Canelo. Who the fuck's gonna watch the Danny Garcia fight then? But yeah, I thought that was a good little boxing Twitter segment. That was pretty fun. Well, here's some fanboy stuff. Ryan Garcia beats everyone from 105. What are you bringing up 105 for? Ryan Garcia beats everyone from 105 to 160. Only losing to Canelo, and in 3 years, Garcia beats and stops Canelo being the best boxer in all of boxing. That is some extra fanboy stuff. Jermall Charlo's silence has me concerned. He might be about to make a very profitable mistake. That's such a silly tweet, dude. Really? You think that's a mistake? Is Jake Paul the new biggest puncher in history? The guy is basically doing what Wilder did his whole career by putting cream puffs to sleep. So why aren't people hyping him like they hype Wilder? Boxing scene told me this is a forum thing, isn't it? Boxing scene told me it's not easy to put a bum to sleep with one punch, and it takes generational power. Isn't that what Jake Paul is doing? Making it look easy with the windmill? This is funny because, first of all, you got to knock out a boxer. I mean, that's pretty easy. Crawford and Spence think by letting their fight marinate, it'll do Pacquiao and Mayweather numbers. Yeah, right. I don't think that's what it is. There's a lot of HBO nostalgia going around. 80s and 90s, okay, but the O's, the 2000s, they're mostly clueless as to how to spend their budget and invest in tons of money in poor fights and mismandatories. HBO boxing snuffed it too late, if anything. Yeah, I mean, the production, I'll always say they're the number one, but a lot of people love to and it gets you retweets and likes and listens and followers and all that, but a lot of people love to go, oh, man, I just miss HBO so much. The way, they made some bad decisions down the stretch. That's on them. Devin Haney to the WBC. If my belt is the junior one, make me the mandatory for the real one. I hear you there. Oh, this is Shakur Stevenson said this a few hours ago. My next opponent going to be a big surprise. Pound for pound me, please. So is that Lomachenko? Is that Loma? Is that Lomachenko he's talking about? That would be something, wouldn't it? I think we already mentioned this, but Usyk and Joshua rematch looks set to land in April, and a date in April in the UK, which would be dope. That would be dope. And that kind of lines up, with the time frame. Eddie recently have said, hey, wait a second, it's going to be February before you know it. Okay, so let's see. Oh, here we go. That's right. So Montero is the guy. I guess you probably guys could have known, but Montero's the guy who's a cheerleader, a fanboy. He loves to say all this stuff about fanboys. Loves to destroy a lot of PBC fighters, especially black fighters. He'll retweet all sorts of crazy shit about black PBC fighters or PBC fighters in general. Then when the tables are turned and it's similar, like excuses, Lomachenko used the excuse. He said, yeah, I don't like that, but he didn't retweet a bunch of shit about him. You know what I mean? He's always been this way. This is him. But this is Montero with this new, and this kind of made me think about from this tweet too, with the Ortiz thing. And this isn't him. This is what I was about to read. But this kind of made me remember so I wouldn't get messages saying, what the fuck? Okay. Martin nearly beat Wilder's only top guy on his resume. After seeing the fight, I think Martin had a point on why he would have defeated Wilder. Ortiz had ring IQ to weather the Prince's storm. If that was Wilder, he would have panicked and got stopped again. Martin should be considered better than Wilder. Oh, it's so funny. It is so funny. Okay, so here is our guy, Montero, right after the fight. Luis Ortiz's best W is Charles Martin, which that's not true, but, we'll just keep going. Luis Ortiz's best W is Charles Martin, who was flattened in 2 by Joshua, beat by Kozlowski, and on his way to losing to Glasgow before the freak injury. The Cuban was way down before scoring the TKO win. Ortiz is Deontay Wilder's best win by a mile. Just saying. Ortiz Martin, right? So that's what he says now. Now, Roll actually pushed back and said, hold on now. It was his most dramatic win, but Jennings and Thompson were both better. Jennings was a consensus top 10 heavy still at the time. Martin wasn't, and Thompson was past the rankings, but I'd argue was just a better fighter in general. Okay? That's what he's saying. Somebody else, Babs, actually said Jennings was only months removed from going 12 with Vlad, which is, Jennings enrolled says Jennings was a fixture of the top 10 for at least 2 years at a time. Martin won the belt, from the Glasgow slip of the torn ACL and was consistently raked off it for about 2 months. So, but I bring this up because this is what he was saying in 2016 when Golden Boy and then eventually Matchroom had Luis Ortiz. This is literally in 2016. Remember, when he wasn't with the PBC. Luis Ortiz is truly like a heavyweight Golovkin, a seek and destroy monster with elite boxing craft. Hashtag Ortiz Thompson, and that's Tony Thompson. Not Tony the Tiger, but Tony Thompson. I kind of like saying that. Tony Thompson. Anyway, let's repeat it for those in the back that didn't get that. Here's Montero. Luis Ortiz is truly like he had to find a way to say, yeah, man, he's just like my guy Golovkin. Heavyweight Golovkin. A seek and destroy monster. So he's coming at you monstrously, but he's also got elite boxing craft. That sounds like a bad boy, dude. You know what I'm saying? That sounds tough, dude. And he goes on to say, nobody wants a piece of Ortiz. He's becoming the heavyweight GGG. And this is actually, I read that wrong. So this is another one he said. This is around the Povetkin thing. This is February 2016. Well, I guess Bronze Bombers, Wilder's WBC belt is going to get dumped in the trash. Povetkin's people won the purse bid by over $2 million. I thought it was more than that they won it by. But anyway, and he adds to the tweet, that was what it was. He added to the tweet, nobody wants a piece of Ortiz. He's becoming the heavyweight. So he not only was, because Povetkin's side won the purse bid, he was like, it's a wrap. Wilder's not going to fight Povetkin, and nobody wants a piece of Ortiz. He's becoming the heavyweight GGG. That's what he was saying. That's what your boy was saying back then. That's what he was saying. So don't you ever forget that. Oh, here's some more news. I think we talked about this, though. But he's been told that the Charlo Castaño rematch will take place either March 12th or March 19th at the Toyota Center in Houston. It was penciled in for the 26th. It's going to be on Showtime. So, yeah, there we go. That's it. That's all I got. I think that does it. Yep, that does it. So, yeah, enjoy the fight. Like I said, the reason why there isn't a big preview is because Joe Smith Jr.'s opponent had to fall out, Callum Smith. And don't get me wrong, I thought that was going to be a fun-ass fight, like a good TV fight. I had Joe Smith winning the fight, but I thought it was going to be a good fight, So there's really nothing to break down when it comes to that now. Abraham Nova is taking on William Encampacion. I forgot his damn name. But let's hope the undercard in general, gives us something to pop off about. Maybe something to pop off. Something pops off. What the fuck I'm talking about. But, you always hope that something that on paper is like, we'll see. Also, there's a heavyweight fight, Pinchuk against Jose Mario Flores. So hopefully something out of the undercard pops off. But, yeah, I mean, Steve Ferrard or whatever, and Joseph, I'm not saying, like, it's a shitty card. How could you do this? I'm just saying that, it's just not a highly anticipated, card. So there is no big breakdown. You know what I mean? So, yeah, hopefully we get something to pop off. We'll be back next week. And I did get a couple of messages saying, where's that pay-per-view list? You're bullshitting. You're just trying to, what's it say? You're trying to duck it. I'm ducking this pay-per-view list, and the PBC is putting on pay-per-views that would never be on pay-per-view. And you're lying basically about all these pay-per-views that did below 300,000 trash pay-per-views. That only now the PBC are the only ones putting on mediocre main events on pay-per-view, right? That's the theory. And you've heard us talk about plenty of stuff about this pay-per-view stuff, but my point is, and that's why I brought up 2006 when HBO did 10 and I think Showtime did 12, not to mention the other stuff out there that's pay-per-view that we won't even talk about. But the list is coming, but we're not going to talk about pay-per-view this shit every fucking time, even though we did this fight, It just gets old. So am I ducking it? Go ahead. Keep saying I'm ducking it. That's fine. Duck away, duck, gray duck, duck, goose, whatever. Anyway, I do have a list in the segments coming, and we're going to go around the list of fights that shouldn't be fights on pay-per-view. That's basically the list. Anyway, I'm going to get out of here. Enjoy the night. Enjoy the fights. We'll see you next week. Peace.